Well, you might want to go solo on information, but don't do it. Not till you listen to this interview. Because we got, sun, fun, and skin cancer. And the numbers can be staggering. Besides that, look at leather-like skin and premature aging. If the skin cancer won't scare you enough, that will. Dermatologist Dr. Jeannette Graf sees it all. And she wants to help you have fun in the sun in her book called Stop Aging, Start Living. Nice to have you with us, Dr. Graf.
It's nice to be with you.
Okay, skin cancer, more prevalent than ever before. And yet we used to have people who work out in the fields and everything. Is the sun getting stronger and we're getting weaker? What's going on?
Well, the sun is getting stronger, actually. And it's not so much that we're getting weaker. It's that the more we're exposed to sun, the weaker our skin becomes. And there's a simple solution to all of this, and that is simply by applying sunblock, which really makes all the difference in the world.
Okay, but I go into, this is just recent too, it's so funny. I walked into, I can't remember, was it like a CVS or a Walmart, whatever it was, and all this stuff stared at me. I mean, 20%, with a sunblock, 30%, 50%. This one works in the water. This one works in that. This one has UVB. This one you have, and I'm going, I don't know what the heck they're talking about.
Well, it can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah?
So let me simplify it.
Okay.
Number one, sunscreens are regulated by the FDA, which means that they cannot put anything on the label that isn't so.
Oh. I kind of question that. I kind of question whatever the FDA says to me lately, since I've seen so many reports that I got to be careful. I've got to know what's in that label, and I've got to check it out myself.
Well, if anything, the latest monograph, and a monograph is simply a book of rules, so to speak,
okay,
guidelines that are designed by the FDA, and they are really very careful. If anything, they're kind of conservative in what they say.
Like what?
Well, for a while, if you think back when SPF of 15, this is way before UVA was even talked about, and broad spectrum, which is now talked about. Before, they used to say that if anything over a 30 doesn't make a difference, so it had to be labeled 30 plus. Mm-hmm. So we went back and forth with them because that clearly isn't true. They have revised their monograph so that now an SPF can actually say 50. So they're saying you can use an SPF of 50, and anything over that, they said, doesn't make a significant difference. I beg to differ on that. So if anything, the FDA is really much more conservative in their labeling. So when someone, these companies have to put certain things on the label in order to sell a sunscreen. So I would go very strongly by those rules.
Okay, so what do you use?
What I personally?
Yeah.
Okay, what I personally use an SPF of 50 on a daily basis. And when I'm outdoors, I use an even stronger SPF, and I use an SPF of 85 plus all over my body.
Good grief. I mean, okay.
But I'm a very, very light-skinned person.
Okay.
You have to realize I go out in the sun, and I get pink immediately.
Okay, but if you've got clothes covering your body, what do I have to have it for?
Aha, because clothing is not as protective as we think it is. So if you wear a white T-shirt out in the sun, you're getting an SPF of between 3 and 5. If you're wearing a dark T-shirt out in the sun, you're getting an SPF of around 9. That's not as much protection as we think. That's why now we have SPF-treated clothing. You can actually buy clothing that is treated that is an SPF of 50.
Okay, but if I have to put a sunscreen all over my body every single day, I'd feel like I'm slithering around.
Not necessarily, because there are so many different kinds right now. So you can have lotions, you can have sprays, you can have wipes. There are many different forms of it.
And they're going to last all day?
Not only do you have to put it on every day, you have to put it on half an hour before you go outdoors.
Oh, brother.
And then you must reapply it. So if you're going to be outdoors engaging in sports or walking or going to, poolside, it's best to use something that's water resistant.
So what's the difference between water resistant and waterproof?
There really is, the terminology is actually water resistant.
Uh-huh.
And because there's no such thing as truly waterproof, water resistant means that it's going to resist wearing away, and it's going to continue to give you the protection that it states for a certain amount of time, and that's 80 minutes. It must be reapplied. So if you're going to be outdoors doing your shopping, doing tennis, doing whatever it is you do, or golf, you need to reapply a water-resistant sunscreen every 80 minutes. That's where the sprays come in handy.
Well, yeah, I would think so. You got to go naked in the bathroom to put all the stuff back on again.
Well, primarily the exposed areas.
Okay.
The exposed areas.
Okay.
And sitting in the shade is very helpful. However, that's only 20% protection because ultraviolet light is reflected off of the ground. So even if carrying an umbrella is going to give you some protection, it's not going to give us all that much protection. So you got to reapply the sunscreen.
But you said every 80 minutes?
If it's water resistant. If it's not water resistant, then every 40 minutes.
Oh, please. You say you're light skinned and you have to put it all over your body. Do you apply every 40 minutes in your practice?
80 minutes. Well, only when I'm going to be outdoors. If I'm indoors, I don't have to do that. But truly, it is very important. We know so much about the sun. We know so much about skin cancer. We know that wearing the right sun protection and the right amounts is going to prevent skin cancer. And now we know from the latest studies that it also prevents skin aging. I see a lot of skin cancer and sun damage in my office. Trust me, there is every reason in the world to put sunblock on just the way we say so.
Aren't those mostly people that, do a lot of outdoor sports, rock climbing and, canoeing and all that kind of stuff?
Well, they have to be extra careful, and they have to use, water resistant at all times. There are different levels that we're going to be outdoors. If you're going to be going, from your house to the car, if you're not going to be spending that much time outdoors, then you don't have to slather it all over your body and reapply it every 80 minutes. So it's really all relative. But if you are going to be outdoors, if you're going to be at a picnic, if you're going to be exposed for any long period of time, then absolutely it has to be reapplied.
Now, I know that's the ideal, but realistically, do you think that's going to really happen?
Oh, I think realistically, patients in my practice, I go through this all the time with them. They're very educated on this topic. So the answer to that is we do the best that we can.
Okay.
We do the best that we can.
Because I've never seen anyone ever, every 40 minutes or every 80 minutes reapplying. I really haven't.
I actually do see them. I mean, because the sprays
if they've had problems,
easier.
Don't get me wrong. If they've had problems with their skin, yeah, I can see that. But not a normal person, you know what I mean? Or a person that hasn't had a problem.
Well, if the person is not educated about sun protection, if the person is not, if it's a child, if their parent isn't educated by the pediatrician, which I hope isn't the case, there are people out there who don't use sunscreen. I don't think it's a good idea. There are people out there who said, I have never had a burn in my life. I always tan. I like the sun. And I'm not going to use it, or I'll use it too. I see them, but I also see problems happen later on.
Now, what about and I've had doctors on the air say you should get out in the sun 15 minutes, no sunscreens and stuff like that, at least 15 minutes a day so you get your vitamin D.
I've heard that too. And there's no evidence of that. I mean, there are those who say to go out. Nobody really knows how much vitamin D you're getting in 20 minutes. So I don't even know that there's proof of that number. But I will tell you, I am of the opinion that vitamin D is super, super important. And everyone should have a vitamin D level checked because we are seeing so much vitamin D deficiency. However, there are safe ways to supplement it, much safer than the sun, because I see skin cancer also. Mm-hmm. So I'm of the opinion that, no, don't go out every day for 20 minutes just to get sun without sunscreen, because I see plenty of sunburns in people who go out for 10 minutes if they're not protected. People are more sensitive today. I do tell people to absolutely supplement with vitamin D3, and it's really simple to do.
I think most people do in these days anymore. I do, but I still, am able to go outside. But doesn't it also depend on your skin? There are people who are olive skin. They don't burn. They just kind of, get a little color, and that's about it.
Well, there are myths to that because even the darkest African American skin can be sensitive to the sun.
Really?
And they can burn.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that.
There are people who will tan more easily, but if you tan, you may have some natural protection. But I also see basal cells in these patients. I also see melanomas in these patients. Nobody is immune to skin cancer.
Oh, I understand that. But depending on your skin type, like you said, you're very fair skin, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so you have to be
I have to use a higher SPF just in general.
Okay.
There may be those who can use an SPF of 30 and get away with it.
Okay.
But as long as it's broad spectrum, because we haven't mentioned really broad spectrum.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Broad spectrum sunscreen protects against both wavelengths of sunlight, UVA and UVB. The number is UVB. That's what the SPF number refers to, and those are the burning rays of the sun that we see more. They're stronger in the summertime and weaker in the wintertime. So in the summertime, you really need the high SPF, and that's when you really have to be extremely cautious with sunscreen. UVA stays the same all year round. So that means that in the wintertime in New York, when I go outdoors, I'm getting as much UVA as I am in the summertime. So when we talk about broad spectrum, we're talking about encompassing both wavelengths of light.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you mentioned something about being in New York. There is a difference in the way the sun beats. If you're in like a Sunbelt state or California, the sun is different than it is. I was raised in the Chicago area. We never got sunburns very much, unless you really were stupid. But out here, it's a lot easier.
Oh, sure. Well, you're exposed to a lot more sun all the time.
Mm-hmm. So it depends on the part of the country that you're in, too, correct?
It depends on the part of the country that you're in terms of the amount of UVB that you're going to get, because it depends on the temperature and the strength of the sun, absolutely, in terms of sunburn. However, UVA, you're going to get that everywhere. In fact, if you're in the mountains of Colorado, your UVA exposure is higher because you're at a higher altitude than if you're at the Dead Sea.
Interesting. Oh, there was a report that just came out yesterday, and that was brought to my attention by our business manager, and she said, you got to ask about this, that if people who are taking aspirin on a regular basis, which a lot of people are doing that now for heart conditions or just to avoid heart conditions, that a person who takes aspirin on a regular basis has a 25% less chance of getting melanoma.
It's an interesting study, and I saw it, and it is interesting. I would attribute that if, we have to see more about that and see why. A lot of times these studies come out, but aspirin is anti-inflammatory. Mm-hmm. So it can, in fact, there's a possibility that the inflammation that is created can be dampened by taking aspirin.
Okay, so it just helps to quell it a little bit. It doesn't stop it, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. All right, now what about the stuff that, sunscreen, et cetera, that's put in makeup? Because a lot of them are 15 or 20%.
Right. And the answer to that is that there are creams on the market now called BB creams, beauty balm creams, or blemish creams that are like high-powered tinted moisturizers in that they have a high SPF in them, so they are able to give a lot of protection. But makeup by itself is not enough.
Why?
Because the way it lays on the skin, it's not giving enough protection as something that hugs the skin like a moisturizer. And
there are makeups, not just the tints. A lot of makeup have 15 or 20%, or 15 or 20.
And it's good because it reinforces, and the same thing with mineral makeup. Mineral makeups, some of them go up to 50, but most of the mineral makeups are at about 15 or 20 in terms of SPF. But the answer is that it is better protection to use a moisturizer with an SPF in addition to a makeup.
So Do you put the sunscreen and then a moisturizer and then a makeup on your face?
Well, no. You put a sunscreen. You can use a moisturizer with sunscreen in it, which is what I do.
Yeah, but that's
and
not
not
an 85 like you said needs to be done.
Well, there are moisturizers that are 46, that are 50. I use an 85 on my body.
Oh, okay.
And I use it in the spray form. But there are certain moisturizers with sunscreens that I use on my face, and there are certain compacts that are tinted moisturizers. Like, some of the UVA and SPF 50, I will put all over my face because it has a tint to it and it actually protects. So I like the combination of using both of them. Let's say you're going to work, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's say you're going to work and you want to go out for lunch. It wouldn't be reasonable to say, well, now I have to just take all my makeup off and start over again and put a moisturizer with sunscreen on.
Right.
That's a good time that you can just touch up your skin with the compact and just touch up your SPF, makeup with your powdered SPF mineral makeup. So, for that type of being outdoors, that's adequate. But if you're going to be outdoors, when we talk about this extra added sun protection, we're talking about someone who's going to be outdoors for an extended period of time.
Okay, well, and you mentioned the mineral makeup. I mean, there are so many makeup artists that say stay away from mineral makeup because it's not good for your skin.
Well, I would beg to differ on that.
Okay. Yeah, because I've had people say, mineral, it dries out your skin.
Not necessarily. I mean, there's different types, and there's liquid minerals also. So it depends on the formulation.
Got it. Now, you mentioned about going outside. What about sitting in the car? I've heard that, the sun coming through the window in the car is just as bad as being outside, if not worse.
Well, the sun coming through the car window is very strong. So if you don't have specifically tinted windows, which most people I know don't have, myself included, you do have to consider it an extended period of sun exposure. Well,
almost all windows are tinted, but not real dark.
Not enough.
Oh, okay. So that's what you have to, again, is it your whole body you got to do again? I can't get past this. I got to slather my whole body. I can't get past that.
If you're going to be outdoors.
Oh, okay.
If you're going to be outdoors and poolside, if you're going to be wearing shorts and have exposed skin. But for, everyday stuff, if you're going to be inside a car, if you're going to be going shopping and wearing clothing in and out. But if you're going to be at a picnic all day and you're wearing a white T-shirt, yeah, you have to slather your body.
Mm. Okay. Now, the different type, why is it that some people are more susceptible to skin cancer than other people? Because a lot of people are outside and they work all the time and they never have a problem. And other people, all they have to do is look at the sun and bang, they've got it.
Well, yeah, the lighter, first of all, there's genetics. You can never get away from your genetics.
Okay.
So if you have a genetic tendency, if it's in your family, you may be more susceptible just from that. Mm-hmm. The other are the number of sunburns you've had. That makes you more susceptible because there's more damage each time. If you have a history of having been in a tanning bed, your risk goes way up, which is why we say stay away from those tanning beds. And then it comes down to skin type and the amount of natural melanin someone has. So someone who's very, very light-skinned, who burns very easily, will be more susceptible to having more sunburns and more easily develop skin cancer. Darker skin individuals have more natural protection, so they're not as prone to develop skin cancer. But we are seeing an increase of melanomas in patients of color.
Gotcha. Now, what's the difference between the basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell, carcinoma, and melanoma?
The difference between, the first two tend to be more localized, and they tend to happen in skin with more advanced sun exposure. So even though there are exceptions, I tend to see them in older patients.
That's the basal cell and the squamous cell? Those are the two?
Squamous cell also. And by the way, smoking is a big risk factor. So
really?
Cigarette smoking, we actually see almost like a 60% increase in patients who develop squamous cell carcinoma of the skin who have a history of cigarette smoking. So that's a no-no too.
Okay.
Melanoma is the biggest killer, the biggest in people, in young adults. I mean, it really, you see it in young younger people, it is very dangerous because it can metastasize. Melanoma can spread throughout your body, and it can kill. So that's why melanoma is so dangerous. And we know that sunscreen does protect against melanoma. We know that tanning beds increase the risk of melanoma. So when we talk, we do skin cancer checks as a society throughout the country. We teach patients to check their own skin, but it is on the rise in spite of all of this. So we really, that's what makes people more susceptible to it: history and exposure.
It must really tick you off, as far as the magazines and the TV. They always show the healthy person, the California sun type of person, with a tan, and they make it look like everybody should look that way and not just keep your natural skin.
Well, you know what? Some people like the way they look with a tan, and that's why you can get spray tans now.
Yeah, but some of them you
got
to watch.
I grew up at the time when getting a tan was a sign of health.
Oh yeah, me too. Matter of fact, I don't know if you remember this. When we were in college, we used to put iodine and baby oil on.
Oh, do I remember that?
Yeah, and then
I remember that.
It was like baking like chicken in a roasted oven.
And I remember trying to get a tan, and I the saying was you have to burn before you tan. So I've had quite a few sunburns in my day.
Well, I never got really burned badly. Matter of fact, it's so funny because I got burned recently, and I didn't intend to. I mean, I thought I put enough stuff on, and I didn't. And boy, did I come home with I had a dress that was like a V-neck. And I got a tan, well, it's tan now, but it wasn't tan for about 2 weeks. I suffered miserably. It was awful. And I haven't had that since, for 30 years I haven't had anything like that.
Well, thank God. But I've had my share of them.
I know. But I do remember those days, and it's like, oh, my God, what did we do to ourselves, But we didn't know. We didn't know.
We didn't know.
So now that we're all intelligent and we have all this good information, talking about tanning beds, how do you get young people to believe that tanning beds are not healthy for you?
Well, there are states that are trying to regulate the use of tanning beds.
Okay.
There are states that are trying to get parental consent in patients who are 17 and under in order for someone to use a tanning bed. Mm-hmm. So that's being talked about, and we're trying to get that on a federal level, but it really is all about education.
Yeah.
It's really about education. And trying to reach everybody and let them know that.
Yeah. It's one of those crazy things because it's such fun to be out in the sun, and I think that's part of it.
And you should be able to do it safely and have fun. I mean, I love the sun. Mm-hmm. I just have to practice safe behaviors before I go into it, and there are ways of doing that.
Got it. Do you see the cancer, skin cancer, more in young people or older people, or is it kind of a mix?
Well, I'm seeing a mix. Fortunately, in my practice, they have me to educate them, and that's true with anyone who goes to the dermatologist. But I'm seeing more skin cancers in older patients because they've had more exposure.
Yeah.
But I am seeing some odd-looking moles in younger people. I've had a couple of patients who, went to tanning beds for their proms, and I've seen a few melanomas. So it still is older patients have more collective sun damage, so they have more skin cancers.
Got it. Now, do you have a website?
I do. It's www.askdrgraf, without punctuation, ASKDRGRAF.com.
Okay. All right. And the book itself, Stop Aging, Start Living, where's that available?
That's available on Amazon.
Okay.
And other booksellers, and it's a work that I had a lot of fun writing. It also goes into internal alkalinity and how to stay young from the inside out, because that's a big thing with me.
Oh, nice. We're going to have you come back again, because I haven't gotten the book, so I didn't know that was in there.
Oh, we're going to have to send it to you.
Yeah.
We're gonna it's just that's a whole other topic that's a lot of fun to talk about.
Okay, because and it's never too late to start, right?
Never. Okay. Never too late.
Because a lot of people say, well, I didn't do it, or, it's too late to do it now. But like you said, it's never too late to start putting yourself in order.
It's never too late to start doing anything.
Got it. I like that idea. Okay, well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. Keep up the good work. Keep beating us up on it. We're going to fight you every tooth and nail because we don't want to.
And you know what? Do it because that's really the best way. I mean, when you have a discussion about these types of things, when you really and truly get down to it, I mean, the reality is it's education. So I love it.
And the other, just a quick thing. They're expensive. Some of the sunscreens are really expensive to use. Does it make any difference which brand you use?
The brand that you use, any sunscreen, it comes down to a matter of preference. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, they are expensive because by the time you use them, especially if you're putting them all over your body,
they go through fast.
Yeah, you go through them quickly. And the reason they're as expensive as they are is because every batch that's made has to be tested by an independent FDA-approved lab. So that raises the price of the sunscreen. But in terms of, it's only a seasonal time that you're going to use that amount of it.
Got it.
That's all over your body. Use one that you like. Use one that feels well on your body. Obviously, if it's too thick and greasy, it's not going to feel good. So you have a lot of choices.
Got it. I want to have
a lot of choices.
You got to come back and visit with us again, okay?
Would love to. Thanks for having me.
You bet, Dr. Graf. Take care now.
You have a great day. Thanks.
And that's Dr. Jeannette Graf, Graf as in Frank, and you can go to AskDrGraf.com. And the name of the book, Stop Aging, Start Living, and add a little bit of fun to it, too. In the meantime, live simply, laugh often, love deeply, and above all else, dare to dream. Talk with you next time on Pop Off.